Hey guys, so on this edition of Geeky AF, we're going to be talking about the Klingons in Star Trek V and kind of how it was a missed opportunity. So Star Trek V is a pretty divisive movie. It's for some people they really like it. Um, it's probably the most human out of some of the films. The campfire scene for Kirk, Spock, and McCoy being some of the most genuine out of all the moments between the characters, which I happen to agree with. I think that's at least in the movies, I think it's a pretty good scene between the characters. The camaraderie is pretty well. Bones, um, his scene with his father dying, I think is a pretty relatable scene, and I think it's probably some of the best acting that DeForest Kelly ever did. And even the Spock scene with Sarek, um, how Sarek is kind of ashamed to have such a human son. It's kind of heartbreaking in a way. So I can see the charm in the film. Um, but the film overall, by a lot of trekkers, kind of take a dim view upon it in its search for God. To a lot of people, they find it either offensive or uh, cheaply made, or just an overly bloated film. Too much going on, or not enough going on in the common sense department. Um, I kind of fall somewhere in between. I see a lot of things wrong with the movie, and I see a lot of redeeming qualities in the movie. Um, for me, I have to be in the mood to watch Star Trek V. It's definitely one of the worst movies in the Star Trek franchise. I think for me, I think Star Trek Insurrection not is below that one. As Star Trek Insurrection is the one that I do not like the most. I think Star Trek V is probably the next one. Star Trek Nemesis is probably third on that list. Those movies I just don't find many redeeming qualities in the films, as opposed to the other ones. Now there are some redeeming things, but not as many as the other ones. The other ones, there's just so many to go to that I enjoyed them more. One of the things that I think Star Trek V does bring to the table, and I wish they were able to scratch the surface of these characters more, are the Klingons in the Star Trek V. We had really great Klingon characters in Star Trek 3 with Commander Krug, and we got that great Klingon fight, where it destroys the Enterprise, and this was a Klingon enemy that was worth Kirk's. This was kind of the Klingon fight we always had wanted in the original series, like Captain Kirk fighting the Klingons, and it was cool. I thought there was an interesting. By the time we get to Star Trek V, you have a Captain Kirk that's kind of past his prime. It's kind of addressed here that the crew are kind of getting old. Everything's kind of falling apart in the Enterprise. The crew is kind of getting older, and I think that there's an interesting story in this youthful Klingon that is kind of like, man, I want to take out this legend. Let's go do it. I'm tired of shooting at space junk. I want to go take out this legend. I can do this. And I think that the two stories don't mesh well. And I wish they could have been told as two separate stories. Tell a Cybok story and then come back and tell a different story with this. In a sense, they kind of did that with Star Trek 60 Undiscovered Country, but you have that with the politicized nature of the Klingons and the symbolism of Russia and the Cold War and all that. So it's not quite the same, but I really felt that an older Captain Kirk going against in his prime Klingon, I felt like that's an interesting story to be told. And especially these Klingons, because they feel kind of useless in this film. They have an interesting look, especially the Klingon lady, the one that Sulu and Chekhov are kind of like, oh man, let's check her out. And then you know, when she's walking up to the Klingon, they're like, oh man, let's turn the other way, get away from her, Um, I felt like they were just underutilized for this film, and it was kind of a waste. You obviously money was put into the makeup. Um, I would say special effects, but I don't really think money was spent there all too much. Um, but I felt like that was just a missed opportunity because they had a great look for them. The motivation was there. The acting was well, and I just felt that the two stories, I felt like they just tried to put too much into that, and I don't feel like it worked well. And I felt that it was just a missed opportunity to have these characters that could have told an interesting story, because again, how many of us, are looking at that, legend from 20 years ago going, I could beat him, I could take him out, and that's how the Klingons are starting to look at Kirk, and then by the time you get to Star Trek 6, you have the two old war heroes, that's an interesting tale. But I felt like both those stories just didn't mesh. And I wasn't too happy with at the end of the story, the Klingons kind of saved the day because Spock comes over there and takes command of the Klingon ship and whatnot. Like, to me, that wasn't very satisfying. It was just like, why are the Klingons here? That's just kind of, it's just, to me, it was bad storytelling. I felt like there was a more interesting story to be told there, and we weren't told it. So, but what are your guys' thoughts? Do you guys feel the same way that I think his name was Captain Claw? I think his name was. Do you feel that those characters were kind of throwaway characters, or do you feel like there was more of a story potential there for them? Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you like this video and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll make more. So, all right. Keep on geeking on, guys.